Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday. And I have my friend and mentor in the house today who just does so much on LinkedIn. He is the relentlessly helpful LinkedIn nerd, John Espirian, coming at you today. So, John, just in case somebody doesn't know who you are or what you do, can you just give us a quick intro?
Of course I can. Thank you for having me back, Gillian. Lovely to be here. Yes, I'm John Espirian, relentlessly helpful LinkedIn nerd, and I'm a LinkedIn consultant based in South Wales in the UK. Used to be a copywriter, used to be a software tester, and now I focus on helping people understand how LinkedIn works. That's me.
Awesome. Awesome. So I'm going to just jump right into what our topic is today, because this is something a lot of people need help with. And this is actually a topic that has come up several times in the Espresso Plus community that I'm a member of, that you run. And I thought, this is something that affects pretty much everybody on LinkedIn is affected by this. So we're talking about the verification advantage, LinkedIn or linked out. And so this is a new thing that LinkedIn is doing. Luckily, it's free. So there's, some good things. You go over to Twitter, which is now called X, but you go there, it's a whole other, game. But here on LinkedIn, it's huge. So, John, can you just quickly kind of just explain what this is for anybody who's like, what is this verification thing? Can you just give us a heads up?
Yeah, so this is the idea that on LinkedIn, you can verify your profile so that it has a little gray shield next to your name to show that you are really the person that you're claiming to be. That is a verified LinkedIn account. As Gillian said, it is free to verify your account, unlike on some other places. And there are three forms of verification. There's personal identity verification, which I suspect is what we're mostly going to be talking about today. There's also corporate-based verification, and there's educational, institutional-based verification. All three of them lead to you having a gray shield on your LinkedIn profile. Not many profiles are so far verified, but if you see a gray shield, then one of those three methods has been used, and that person has verified to LinkedIn that they are who they say they are.
Wow. Which nowadays is really important, because as we are sometimes having our relationships with people on LinkedIn and then we go off LinkedIn, it can be an important thing. So you can actually, I think it's G that actually has two. She has the corporate and the personal verification. So I guess you can, have multiple ones. So let's just talk about the government, like the personal one. So I'm in the United States. I went through a company called Clear in order to do my verification. I was a little nervous and kind of went, is this sketchy? What can they do with my stuff? But both Jeff Young and Kevin D. Turner both said, you really need to do this, Gillian, just like you should do other security things for LinkedIn as well. So I just bit the bullet and did it. And I was lucky because in the United States, all we have to show is a government ID, which a driver's license was easy enough. And I felt more comfortable with that. Now you are through a different company because you're across the pond. So you can't use a driver's license, correct?
That's right. Our system is powered by a system called Persona, and that requires an NFC-enabled passport. So it needs a passport that's got a chip in it that you can use during the identification process. And this has become one of the most common questions I've received over the last few weeks is, what kind of security protocols are in place to protect my data? And it's very hard to know what you can trust. It seems to be the case that when you get into this process, you are really verifying your details with a third party. And all that third party is then doing is saying to LinkedIn, green flag or red flag, yes or no. They are who they say they are, or they're not. And that's all that LinkedIn gets back. That's what we're at least led to believe. I can't do the forensic data on this to work out exactly what LinkedIn is taking from us. But from a security point of view, we believe that LinkedIn is just getting a simple yes or no flag as to verification. I can understand why people are very, very concerned about this, because your passport is kind of probably the most personal kind of form of identification you've got. And so giving up those details, you might think, well, do I really need to do this? And that has then led to a debate about, is it important to have your identity verified? I think in the future, it might well be. but right now it's not as important as it will be. And I came up with an analogy about this, which I mentioned in the Espresso Plus community. So I'll just repeat that here, which is in the early days of the web, we had standard HTTP websites. You see that at the front of all web addresses. When secure websites came along so that you could, transact business, do e-commerce and stuff, those websites had the HTTPS with the little padlock, and it was something a bit novel. And many people might wonder, well, do I need that? No, not necessarily. I don't need it right now. Fast forward to today, though, and almost all websites are now secure by default. So much so that if you browse an insecure website, you'll get a warning before you can even go there. And it really stands out like a sore thumb. So in the early days, it was standard, no kind of security. And these days, if you don't have it, you stand out negatively. So I think
Mm,
same analogy here. If you don't have that gray shield right now, I don't think anyone's going to go, well, that person is might be dodgy and I'm not going to contact them. But maybe in a couple of years, the tables have turned and people go, well, why haven't you verified? What's your reason? Everyone else has.
mm.
Now, LinkedIn have said that they have a goal of verifying 100 million accounts by 2025. So to me, that actually isn't a huge goal because that only represents about 10% of the user base. So that's their goal is to verify only 10% of the user base, admittedly in only a year's time. I think they might actually struggle to get to that number, but those are the kind of numbers we're looking at now.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. So, wow, that's great information, and I do love the whole SSL certificate because I used to do a lot with websites, and I remember how important it was. It was complicated. It wasn't easy. It wasn't
Mm,
easy to get that on your
yeah.
website for a lot of people. So, it's a good thing, and like you said, if I see one without it, I don't even visit it. And I have to admit though, that because I have a verified profile, when I have somebody who wants to, link in with me and connect with me, and I go look at their profile, if I don't know them at all, then having that verified badge actually is a tick for me that it's like, oh, this person has a little bit more credibility. Like if I had
Yeah.
to make a decision between connecting with a person with it or without it, I think I'm more likely to connect with a stranger who is verified. That just makes me
Mm.
feel that they're not a bot or something. And that might be a little biased, but I think because I did it, I kind of feel, yeah, it was worth it. It was worth
Yeah.
it.
I've been observing my own behavior when I receive invitations to connect because I'm increasingly receiving invitations with no note at all, as we've probably talked about before. Free members only get to send 10 of those per month, personalized invitations. If I see an invitation from someone with a Grey Shield badge, I probably will accept and then send them a message back to say, hey, how did you find me? What brings you to my door? That kind of thing. Whereas otherwise, if I was, on the fence and just short on time, I might click ignore. So for
Mm.
me, that Grey Shield could be a difference maker for me accepting.
Mm, I can see that. I can see that. Now, what would be okay? So there's the fear. There's always the fear of like, what are they going to
Yeah.
do with my data? And it's like here in the United States, we had like a whole security breach of like the credit card checks places, Equifax and stuff like that, and
Mm,
and stuff that can happen. So there's always that nervousness of people. It's like,
mm,
oh, can I trust Clear to do my data right or whatever? But the other thing too is that I think holds some people back who I know are great people. They say, I have an issue with my name
mm,
because my name is not what's on my government ID.
yeah.
And if you think about it, that's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge. So it could be a woman she's married and she took her husband's name, but for business kept her own,
Yeah.
professional name. Could be a nickname like, your name's Teddy, but your real legal name is Theodore, but nobody knows that. Some people
Mm.
don't even use their first name. So what do we say to these folks?
Yeah, it's a real problem that there is a kind of inherent discrimination with the way the system is set up towards women, towards people who come from regions where it is common to use a nickname because maybe your given name is actually quite complicated
Mm,
to write and to say, and so you go by a shorter name, but that's not what's on your travel documents, and those people are missing out. The only thing I can really say to them is to use one of the other routes that we mentioned at the top of the show, which is about
mm,
if your company is big enough to support the workplace verification scheme, then you could try and verify through there. Or if you've studied at an educational institution that has the capability to issue verification, then you could go through that route.
mm,
But I and others have made the point to LinkedIn in their feedback forms that actually this system is not fair for everyone as it stands. And so you might want to look at that. So it's interesting that in the US you could use a driver's license. In the UK you can't. If you could use a driver's license, I think that would be a lot more fair. I don't see why we can't over here. So maybe in time things will just ease up a little bit, and there'll be a bit kinder with the rules. But I don't know what's in their plans around that one. What this leads to as well, another thing to think about is if you do have a verified account, that account possibly might be seen as more valuable to people who would try to hack LinkedIn accounts. We all know that
mm,
accounts have been hacked in the past. Well, if I could hack your account, let's say, and you've got a grey badge, that might be more valuable to me because then maybe I
mm,
could issue some spam on your behalf. But because it's coming from a grey badge account, it might be seen as more trustworthy. One thing you can't do, though, let's say I were to hack Gillian Whitney with a grey badge and then change it to some other name, that
mm.
the moment I change that name, I'm going to lose my grey badge. So that's
Ah,
a protection of sorts. But I suppose the point to make here is that if you do go for the grey badge and you get it, one thing you absolutely should do is make sure that you turn on the two-step verification so that you need your, text message to your phone or some other authenticator app to give your account even more protection. It's not foolproof, but it's a good idea to have that because the last thing you want is for a verified account ever to be hacked.
mm,
Um, and I suppose the other thing I'd say is that a lot of people have told me that, okay, I'm resigned to doing this. I don't really want to do it. Okay, I'm going to do it, but it doesn't work. Yeah. So
no.
they say I've been through the process like 5 times. It's not recognizing my passport. I was lucky. I mean, it went through the first time. I got it done in about 3 minutes. I thought, wow, this is the easiest thing in the world. But other people have said, the chip doesn't scan. Do I need a new passport? And I can see. I think Phil is in the comments saying that he had to do it multiple times and then it let him in. Now I assume he's probably doing the same thing each time. Sometimes it decides to work. So I don't know if there's some kind of technical flaw with
Mm,
the verification process as well. But that's another thing you've got to put up with. I mean, this is taking time from your day to do these things. So if you've got to do that, if it takes 3 minutes, then that's great. If you've got to do it 5 times and it takes you half an hour to get through, busy people might just give up on it.
wow, wow. Well, we'll head over to the comments because I do want to say hello to everybody and see if we have some questions. And it is interesting because the driver's license, well, just another thing to add, you have to have a mobile phone. You can't do
Yeah,
this on the
that's right.
desktop. So that's another thing as well. But having a driver's license was really easy because it's like flat, easy to take a picture of that,
Mm,
front, back, send it up. And it was so much easier.
yeah.
Passports could be a lot trickier. So, and then
Yeah.
what would I do? I have 4 passports. I don't know what passport I would use. What would I do?
Yeah, that's a trick. I mean, that must be an edge case, but that's a tricky one to get through. Yes, I actually, even though I do most of my activities on LinkedIn through the desktop, I kind of liked that the whole process was via mobile because I'm sure at one point there was a Face ID
Mm,
verification to get through as well. That kind of gave me a bit of extra security that this information was going to be secure. But yeah, I'm not sure. I can see Juma saying that verification is not available. LinkedIn have done a big rollout on this because at first it was like 2 or 3 countries, and all of a sudden they opened the floodgates, and loads of them are now. And I think I might have shared a list with you of the countries that were covered. So
yes.
most places now seem to be able to do it, and the providers I've certainly seen Clear and Persona. I think maybe Entra is another one, and I don't know if
Okay.
there's any others. But I suppose if you're really concerned about this, you're going to need to do some kind of digging yourself some digital journalism to work out, like, is this really, really safe? Is this data ever going to be sold or used elsewhere? I would think that the business models of people like Clear and Persona are completely at threat if they were going to do some dodgy things with your data. But that's not to say it doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
think for me, I've just thought, look, I'm a LinkedIn trainer. I'm showing other people how LinkedIn works. It would be irresponsible of me not to know how this process worked. So I went ahead and did it. And yeah, thankfully it was nice and quick for me.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. So we have Jeff joining us today. Can't wait to hear from John and Gillian, popcorn in the front row. We have Karen joining us today. Thank you, Karen, for coming in. She's coming in from, I believe she's from the New York area. So, Karen, we're glad you're here today. We got Kevin Turner in the house, and he is verified. Jeff and Kevin are the ones that kind of pushed me to move forward with this, and it is good to be verified. I think also too, Debbie Weems said somehow Clear helped her. She used Clear. She got verified in the States. And when she traveled, somehow she got some benefit traveling. So I'm not sure if it linked in with TSA or whatever. So that's kind of good to hear. So great to be here for our LinkedIn University. Oh, we have the lovely Tina joining us as a headhunter. I see that many candidates have verified profiles, mostly verified with the work email. It adds credibility to the profile.
Yeah. So there's a question that this raises. Will the search function in LinkedIn, not just for recruiters, but for everyone, will that be upgraded so that you can say, well, show me only verified accounts? Because if it did, then you might, that might exclude people, and that might make people think, okay, I really need to get on this train now.
So following up on Tina's point about the work email verification. So if you I have like a domain that's my company, but are we talking like a bigger company, John? Are we talking like
I don't think I'm not quite sure what the rules are for this, and I don't know if LinkedIn have published them, whether you need to have at least, it's one of those where you need to have at least 10 employees or need at least 100 employees. I'm not quite sure, but it's certainly, if you're a one-person business, you're not going to be able to self-verify through that.
Okay.
So there are some criteria. I'm not aware exactly what they are, but the end result, for people who don't know what they're looking at, if you just see a person's name and the gray shield, that's all you probably need to see.
Right.
The source of where that verification came from,
Right.
you're not necessarily interested in. So I don't think it matters a whole lot.
So what happens if you leave the company? Like if I was, if I was working at Zoom or something, and then all of a sudden I'm not working there anymore, but I've been verified, do I have to take that off, or is Zoom going to take that off? Like, what happens to that?
I think if it's not your current employment, I don't see how that verification can stand. I haven't ever worked for a company that offers this, so I can't test it directly, but it would be interesting to hear from anyone who has been through that, to see, because
Talk to G.
yeah, yes, if you're doing a workplace email verification system and that goes through, and then you change to a different current employment, well, you're not necessarily who you say you are anymore. Yeah, so I would expect that it goes away, but I haven't done any tests to confirm that.
Okay. So Phil is joining us, and he says, I tried and failed several times to get verified for whatever technical reason. Finally was able to complete the process last week. So that's very frustrating, but I think it's good that you kind of stick it out. But I'm sure it is frustrating. And by the way, I'll just let people know, I get emails from Clear now. So,
really?
Encouraging me to, would you let go? Like you don't have to have, you open up a Clear account by verifying in the States. And I didn't have to pay for it, but Clear actually has paid other things. So now I'm on their list. So I guess I could unsubscribe, but I am getting emails. And maybe that's the difference, because we don't have the GDPR here in America that you do. So
I don't recall having to set up a separate Persona account, and I've not received anything since from them. And I signed up for this in mid-December, so I would have heard something by now. So I think perhaps things are a little bit tighter over here. I can see a comment as well from Jeff, who's talking about his driver's license name is Jeffrey, but LinkedIn name is Jeff. So So if that had been his passport, this ain't working for him. But the
Mm,
fact that he can do it through his driver's license obviously means that the rules are a little bit kinder there. So
mm.
yes, again, I'd like to see that come over to Europe, but maybe that's a challenge for some reason.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have Marcia joining us. Thanks for the verification breakdown. This is like a mystery thing. So many people just like,
Mm.
what? That just you don't really know about it. Mary Wu says, "Good plan, Gillian. If Kevin says so, do it." So it's just like, same with that two-step verification.
Mm.
Is that number like the 100th monkey? Do they think when it hits that number, there will be an exponential rise? Interesting
Well,
question.
it's certainly good PR for them if they can say we've got 100 million verified users. That gets into the press, and then probably things will start to accelerate from there because there will be a shift in the balance, and people might think, okay, well, I don't want to be left out of this. Right now, it's just the nerds and the power users, and not many other people are rushing to verify their accounts. But there will come a time, I think, if your LinkedIn keep pushing this, that you'll see enough grey ticks to go, what's this about? And also, I don't know if you saw this, at your end, but I certainly did. I was intending to verify my account. I was just waiting for my new passport to come in the post. And in the
Oh.
days leading up to that, I got on various different screens of LinkedIn saying, oh, this person is verified. Do you want to verify too? Or this is how to verify. So they were
Mm,
definitely pushing me towards doing it. And I suspect that will probably continue.
which is interesting because I'm seeing a message, a prompt from LinkedIn anytime I go to somebody's profile who's premium because I'm free. And it says this person is optimized by premium. I forget the exact message, but it comes
Hmm.
right across the screen.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to be on premium too? So it's like they're really pushing this FOMO thing.
Mm.
And to be honest with you, with all the things that LinkedIn is now pushing for premium, I jumped into verification quickly because I thought maybe that's the next thing. It's like you're going to only be able to do it if you upgrade. So I
Mm.
think we might see, maybe that's totally way off base, but whoever thought we'd lose like being able to send a personalized invite,
Yeah,
like stuff happens. There's
that's
so
right.
many different things that maybe one day if you want to be verified, you got to pay to play, which is what they do on Twitter, X, whatever.
Mm.
So it could happen.
They did try to make some hay out of the statement they released when verification was announced, which was very clearly that this is a free thing. And I think they said something like, unlike on other social media platforms, which is like a bit of a snarky dig at Twitter, I think. Um, and I suppose if I were being really cynical, even though they're probably not going to get individuals' data out of this, maybe they've got some kind of agreement with the likes of Clear and Persona that says something like, we'll give you aggregate demographic information. Like you've
Mm,
got 63 million males between 40 and 50, because they could do that level of aggregate and verified information without giving away any personal details. They might be able to tighten up their demographic data a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens.
mm, interesting. So just a personal question. When you verified with the passport, just because I really would like to know what would happen with my 4 passports,
Mhm.
if I was, say I was living back in Israel, what passport would I use? Would it be the country that I'm at? Because even when I lived in Israel, I actually still said that I was living in the United States because my business was registered in the United States. So what would people do with multiple passports?
Well, I wasn't asked how many passports I had, and I was asked to enter a passport number, and then everything went from there. So I suppose you could pick one, and I probably favour choosing something from the US or Canada in your situation, but I don't know that there didn't seem as though they catered for that situation.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good. Okay. So Phil says HTTPS, good analogy. It is. That's just absolutely brilliant because we all get that. With the rise of fake LinkedIn accounts, hopefully verification will be valuable unless the bots find a way to game the system.
Mm.
Do you think
Yeah,
that's possible?
it's possible. I mean, look, if you get enough people verifying, you could implement settings that say allow in-mails only from verified accounts.
Mm,
For example, that might cut down on spam quite a bit. So there's all sorts of things that LinkedIn probably could do to lean on the fact that people have got a badge to say, okay, we trust you a bit more than the average user, and therefore we'll give you privileges to do things that not everyone else can do. So it's entirely possible that they'll do something like that, but yeah, we'll see.
Wow. Wow. So let me just ask you, John, how do you think this whole verification on LinkedIn leads to when we get together with people off LinkedIn at events and things like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it's all about identity, isn't it? And yeah, just getting to know each other online, verifying that someone is a real person, and then taking it into the real world. That's where the relationships really matter. Having a grey badge next to your name on a screen is one thing. Actually meeting up with the people that you're connected with, that's the way to make memories, isn't it? And that's yeah, and we're going to be trying to do that next month at our conference. So yeah, I'm all about meeting real people, making real connections. Forget about the grey badges. Let's have some real conversations with people.
I love that. I love that. And I'm so looking forward to meeting up with you and meeting up with
Mhm.
everybody that's going to be at Uplift Live. I'll just make a little plug for it. It's a conference that's happening next month, March 21st. It's going to be in
Excellent.
Birmingham, UK, and it's for people who love LinkedIn enthusiasts. And if you can't join us live, if you can't come in person, there is a virtual option. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that, just in case you don't know, because it's pretty
Very kind. Thank you, Gillian. I'm really looking forward to meeting you. We've been connected for, I don't know, easy 4 years, probably longer than that. So to turn that online relationship from the other side of the world into a real world one, that's the real power of LinkedIn. And yeah, can't wait to host you soon.
This is great. This is great. Okay, so we're basically kind of, coming to the end of the live. I don't see any, just lots of great comments here. Everybody is just, really enjoying this topic tonight. Today, tonight, this morning, whatever time in the world it is. Kevin says you can also at any time turn off your verification, even if your account is taken over. So that's, again, a good thing to know, that it's like, LinkedIn is not making this mandatory. It is optional. You can choose to do it. You can choose to not do it. And at any time, you can say, you know what? I didn't care for this. I read this article. It made me feel a little sketchy. I want to turn it off. So I think it's good to know you're still in the driver's seat. It's not like you've given anything over. So, John, before we wrap up, do you have kind of some final takeaway tips that you want to share with us today?
Well, I think if you're going to go ahead and do it, then now is as good a time as any. So crack on, and if the technology works, it really can be very quick. Like I said, I timed mine; it took me 3 minutes. I suppose more broadly, I would say trying to optimize your profile so that people wouldn't need to see a badge to see that you're a real person. So that means, put your face on things, record a video, put it in your featured section so that people can see the real you, see that you're not faking anything, So have an active profile, active content, and that hopefully will be enough to convince people that you are who you say you are, and they'll just want to do business with you anyway, regardless of whether you've got the shield or not.
Wonderful, wonderful. And please, anybody who has questions about this, just know that LinkedIn does have some good help topics. John, scroll through these comments, because John actually went through and put some really great places that you can click, and you can learn about the different places, which countries have it, which countries don't have it. So that's just really important. And I think it's being rolled out pretty much everywhere now, and it's free. So, definitely look into it and take advantage of it. That's what I would say.
Perfect.
Okay, super. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, John. Thank you to everybody who showed up in our audience today and who will later be listening to the podcast. We just hope that this has really given you a good idea of verification. Is it good? Is it bad? I think it's got definitely more pros than cons. So definitely something to look into. And if it resonates for you, get verified and let us know. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. And thanks again, John, for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks a
Okay.
lot, Gillian. Cheers.
Okay. Bye.